morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bold TV. We come to you every Saturday by 10:30 a.m. on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Bold TV is powered by beautiful, outstanding ladies with disabilities, Bold Hearts Initiative. And it's our pleasure to bring to you another amazing episode focusing on conversations around disability and its related issues. Today is no other day. Today is the 3rd of December. And for us in the disability community, it is a very important day. But before I go ahead and introduce today, I just want to let you know who is on the call with me. Every single person on the call for this particular episode is a regular co-host of Bold TV. So I have Osaki Theresa George Will, I have Abiose Falade, and then we have Afyong Etten. We also have Tomisin Adeyefa. She's joining us on the call. I am Freki Andresian. I was 5 co-hosts bringing the conversations today. The 3rd of December, since 1992, commemorated or inaugurated as the United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities, short form IDPD, and this is year 2022. So from 1992, themes have been set up to ensure that we have awesome conversations around disability. The 3rd of December is one key day that we use in the disability community as a tool for advocacy, as a tool to raise awareness on issues or on the theme that has been set by the UN. And this year is no exception. The theme for this year's International Day of Persons with Disabilities is Transformative Solutions for Inclusive Development, the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world. Our focus for conversation will be on innovation and transformative solutions for inclusive development in employment and in reducing inequalities. And so I'll go ahead and ask my ladies key questions. Please join us. Call somebody, call someone who knows someone to join this conversation. All right, ladies, the first question, and I'm going to throw the question to Osaki. In the context of the theme of this year's International Day for Persons with Disabilities, what is inclusive development?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm still Osaki Theresa George. Inclusive development is an equitable development approach built on the understanding that every person of all diversity and identities and experience will have the opportunity to participate in a country or in a place without barriers. So everything is easy, like you have that space, you have the opportunity to put your own quota or to contribute, and whereby the development, whereby everybody have access to equal life opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Osaki. Afyong, would you want to add to that question? What is inclusive development?
Morning, everyone. I believe that inclusive development encompasses all forms of advancement, whether technological, whether human resource, whether education, in whatever sphere of society, all forms of advancement that is formulated with the involvement of persons with disability, and ensuring that whatever advancements are made, there is, inequality is reduced, whereby the people with persons with disabilities are included in the decision-making process. And whatever technological advancements are made, it is made with each of these groups of people in mind, this particular demographic.
All right. So Afyong and Osaki have, put the spotlight on telling us what inclusive development is. And we've heard words like making the world equitable. They've said reducing inequalities. They've talked about being intentional about things that would ensure that persons with disabilities in whatever aspect of life, whether it's technology, whether it's whatever, that everyone has access. So this brings me to the next question. And I would like to ask Biose, what does an accessible world look like? What does an accessible world look like? And this is in your own eyes as a woman with disability. Go ahead.
Thank you, Frecky, for that question. Good morning, everybody. What does an accessible world look like in my eyes? An accessible world is a world where everybody can go to places, can be anywhere they want to be without having to struggle, without having to beg, without having to look for help, where you can enter with ease. A world where there are ramps everywhere, where the ramps can't be accessible, where there are flat grounds, where there are lifts, where everything works accordingly, works hand in hand, where an accessible world also means where there's a way you can walk through the internet, where the blind can use the internet freely, where everyone is able to do what everyone else is doing and everyone else is accepted while doing it. Thank you.
Okay, so Bielsa is saying that for her, an accessible world is one where she can enter without any cinema. I'll turn the conversation over to Osaki. What does an accessible world look like?
Okay, thank you very much. An accessible world is a world that have a better ground for everybody, whereby one can participate, making of information, activities, environment sensible, where you can just do things with ease without so much bothering of how do I do this, or maybe because you're not included, or where everything is easy on approach of you be able to, if you want to use the restroom, it has a kind of restroom whereby you, whatever situation you find yourself, you'll be able to use it without struggle. There's some restrooms you cannot, because they have staircases, so you're like, I cannot use the restroom. So whereby you can have a word for everyone to participate without so much barriers. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so Saki is speaking to inclusive washrooms in buildings. So a lot of the contributions with respect to accessibility, has focused on structural. Of course, Beyonce had mentioned the digital world when she spoke to a visually impaired accessible world. And I'd like Afyong to also jump on this. What does an accessible world look like to you?
Okay, yes, to add to that, for me, one word comes to mind when I hear accessibility, especially for persons living with disability, and that is empowerment. An accessible world is an empowering world, a world where a person with disability is empowered, and where a person with disability gets independence. It improves and increases independence for the person with disability, so that they are not hindered by any barriers, whether structural, whether emotional, mental, in whatever form. There are no barriers to what they can achieve, but every structure is put in place to ensure that they are able to gain or acquire resources and all other materials that they may need to be able to be productive members of society.
Awesome contributions. So the ladies have gone, really far in telling us what an accessible world looks like. Tomisin, we're asking, what does an accessible world look like to you?
An accessible world for me is that world where everyone, regardless of their disability, gender, age, status, has free and unrestricted access to information, to structures, infrastructure, opportunities, without fear or favor, where you could go anywhere. The fundamental human rights we have entrenched is not hindered by man-made barriers. So that for me is an accessible world.
All right. Thank you very much. So we've spoken to what an accessible world looks like. For me, it's where reasonable accommodation is an intentional act by everyone to ensure that, persons with disabilities are accommodated for in the issues of access, whether environmental factors that determine or cause issues with accessibility, whether communication, but for me, it has to do a lot with reasonable accommodation. All right, there's a second part of this question, and I'd like to throw it to Appion. The theme, speaks to transformative solutions for inclusive development, but also talks about the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and an equitable world. That word. So, what does an equitable world look like?
Okay. Yes, an equitable world, in terms of development, is one in which, for so long, when you look at the precedents for, persons with disabilities and the challenges, it's often been a case of, not being acknowledged, and more often than not, persons with disabilities have, been seen and have not been seen as those who deserve, to have access to certain resources. They've not been included in certain decisions. So an equitable world is one in which there is fairness in the apportioning or allocation of resources to, both people who are non-disabled and the disabled, and ensuring that both sides are given, attention with regards to their different needs in proportion to their needs, and also included in decision-making processes, not being disregarded, on the basis or discriminated against on the basis of their appearance, or because, nobody wants to bother to find out what their needs are. So more often than not, persons with disabilities have been ignored. When there are technological advancements, more often it focuses on persons without disability, and persons with disability are often overlooked. So an equitable world is one in which there is fairness, and ensuring that both sides of the equation are considered.
All right, an equitable world is one where there is fairness and equal access. All right, Osaki, let me also ask you this question: what an equitable world looks like to you?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just repeat a little bit. Equitable world is a fair and impartial world where all can participate properly in a sense of in a simpler setting of work environment, whereby I'm given job because I merited it, and at the same time I'm given a work to do. You don't just give me an employment letter and just give me seat to just sit down without giving me a tax. So in that regard, it's equitable. By you give a particular tax, I can do within my reach, even with my disability. It's something that I can sit down, more likely like administrative kind of job. I can sit down and use the computer and do all what I need to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So Osaki is speaking to where equality leads to some form of equity. So in trying to explain that, where we level the playing field for everyone, not necessarily by ensuring that everybody has equal resources, but taking it a step further, that persons with disabilities have required resources to be effective in being participating members of society. All right, so let's take a look at this theme for a bit. The theme is all-inclusive, but there's some sub-themes. It speaks to an area of employment. So this next question, speaking to this sub-theme, what are some innovative and transformative solutions for inclusive development in employment specifically? So that question is telling us to come up with or to speak on practical, solutions or pointers on how we can ensure inclusive development in employment. So I would like to ask Tomisin this question. Please remember, let's be brief in our responses.
All right. One major benefit that the COVID-19 pandemic has, done to us in terms of employment is the ability to work remotely. And it comes with a lot of innovation. If you ask me, it involves the use of technology, it involves the use of science, and a whole lot of that. And so, as persons with disabilities, that's one major area we can tap into, and then we can explore our potentials. It's also another major area, private sectors, the government sector should also be looking into, where you do not have to go around before you deliver quality, and nobody is aware if the person who actually carried out this task is a person with a disability or not. So for me, remote working is one major innovation in terms of employment. I think I'll stop there and give others the opportunity to share theirs.
All right, thank you very much, Tomisin. Indeed, COVID-19 with the disadvantages did something in the world of work. What it did was it showed us that there were other ways to deliver on deliverables when it comes to the world of work. And that allows for more persons with disabilities to be able to access opportunities in the world of work because of how work can be delivered remotely without necessary emphasis on being physically there, or virtual presence, digital tools to still be productive in society. Good one. All right, so still speaking on employment, and speaking on some innovative and transformative solutions for inclusive development in employment. So I'd like to ask Afyong, what are some, in your world of work? You work in the hospital, and beyond there, what are some? Go ahead.
First and foremost, I'll start with my pet peeve, which is the lack of accessible structures in, story buildings, where, with the power situation we have in Nigeria, people make excuses, and, even if you can't afford to include a lift or an elevator in your building, you can at least do a ramp. You can make a concrete ramp that, goes all the way to whatever level the building is. I've seen it in some places, so it's not as if it's an impossible task. Most of them double as fire exits. Especially in hospitals. So, accessible structures, in all buildings. It shouldn't even be a negotiable thing. It should. In fact, anybody who is given a contract should know that is non-negotiable. It's included. And then another thing would be, for maybe persons that are hearing impaired, having, training certain staff that are positioned in key areas, that can communicate in sign language to, help them, access different, get information on how to get around. Because most times people like this come to the hospital and nobody understands what they want, nobody can help them. And yet it's so impossible to get people that can learn these things, or probably have installed software in organizations where they have, they use digitally empowered, install software that can, easily give quick tips on how to communicate with a person who is hearing impaired. And maybe for persons that are visually impaired, you have elevators with voice activation, like an accessibility, a talkback software that can help them to access whatever floor they are getting to without needing an assistance, human assistance.
Okay, thank you very much. Afyong is speaking to accessibility in the world of work, so that even if a person is not necessarily working remotely and the person needs to access the world of work physically, that structural barriers are removed. If a person has physical disability, hearing impairment, visual impairment, there are many ways to remove accessibility barriers in the world of work that can enhance the person's productivity and in the area of employment. So still speaking of innovative and transformative solutions for inclusive development in employment, just to mention that, when it comes to employment for persons with disabilities, we've seen a lot of discrimination in the world of work because from initial contact, the thought is that this person cannot deliver. And we want to be able to break these barriers down. So Beyonce, speak on one innovative or transformative solution. Go ahead in the era of.
So, Akyong has spoken about accessibility. Tommy Singh has spoken about remote work. But me, I want to talk about what if all these things don't work and then the person has to come to the office on a daily basis. So this is what I think can also be done. You can have time schedules for person with disability, with mobility. The person cannot just arrive at the normal time, can be given an extra 2 or 3 hours to actually get to work, and they should not exceed their own time, and they should do all their work in a limited time that they have. So if a person with a mobility issue cannot get to work, maybe because the driver cannot come and pick them, or they cannot get transportation on time, then they can get to work like 10 a.m. if they leave home like 9 and get to work at 10 a.m. and then start their day at 10. And if they are tired, they should have a break in between. And then if they have a break in between, like a 30-minute break, and then they can start work back at 2. And all their work must be done before their closing time, which is 4:35. And so by that time, the work they get done between the hours of 10 and 4:35 will be the work that they do. They should not be overburdened with work. Not that they should not be given their work to do, but that they should not be overburdened with work. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Beyonce. But to better phrase it so that they will not say that we are using disability as an excuse not to work. Speaking to flexibility in working hours, that's what she's speaking to, and ensuring that deliverables are still insisted on. And some organizations use timesheets, so you have your timesheets, your deliverables do not change. But what she's speaking to is the conditioning in the workplace, where you could introduce flexible working hours, but not de-emphasizing the importance of work or ensuring that your deliverables for that day come through. So thank you very much. Concerning employment, I wanted to say that one of the solutions or innovative solutions, it may not even necessarily creative, but it is an intensity in actually the employment of persons with disabilities, because our solutions have shown that we assume that people are even employing. But what I'm saying is that you should actually have guidelines to ensure persons with disabilities are employed. So still speaking to a theme, we explained what an equitable world is, and we spoke and we said what an equitable world looks like. So I'm going to ask the ladies again, what are some innovations or solutions for inclusive development in reducing inequalities? And I would like to start this with Osaki.
Thank you very much. Okay, one of the points in reducing inequality is that you, in your your employment figures of who you want to employ, the removal of discrimination and stigmatization of women with disability. You don't have to where you can employ certain percentage of women in the work environment, because it's a way of development whereby if you empower a lady, you're empowering a society. So women and girls with disabilities should be one of the key factors in your ratio of employment. So we should have a female gender inside the employment.
Okay, so be gender sensitive in your employment policies. All right, Tomisin, we're speaking about reducing inequality. What are some innovative and transformative solutions?
Okay, so I want to make use of an illustration. The FIFA World Cup is currently going on right now in Qatar. And then let's imagine that we have 3 individuals that are supposed to watch a very, major match in that very big stadium. And one of them is extremely tall, probably taller than I am, about some 7 point something feet. And then you have another person who is of a small stature, and somebody who is just of an average height. So equity to those 3 would mean that if they are all standing, for instance, how far the very tall person would see is not the same far the person with a small stature or that of an average stature would see. So it means that equity would be providing platforms, providing opportunities for the person with a small stature to be able to see as far as a person with a very, huge height could also see. So it means that part of the innovations that we must embrace is the use of opportunities, empowerment opportunities, training opportunities, to ensure that even as persons with disabilities, we are able to, rise together on the same playing field with our counterparts who are not with a disability. So for instance, when it comes to the employment we've been talking about, it means that when you say the 5% derivation, is that really equality? It is not. But when you ensure that, this 5% is sacrosanct, nobody is going to touch it. Nobody is going to, in a situation where you employ 100 persons, and then you employ just maybe 10, maybe when you do an employment for, usually when our government, when they come into power, they have this incentive of employing thousands of persons. And then maybe you employ 1,000 persons, and then you take just 10 persons with disability. That's not equity. But equity will be that, okay, we said 5%. We've all agreed that 5% is a good start. It means that the 5% should be 5%. Nothing should touch it. And so with that, we'll grow together. We'll be able to see other avenues where we can, make persons with disabilities productive and also contribute their quota to nation building.
All right, thank you, Tomisin, for that contribution and that illustration on what equity is, and with respect to being provided the necessary at the same level. So Afyong, just throw your voice into this particular sub-theme of reducing inequalities.
So talking about innovative, which means new, never before talked about, and then transformative, which means a change. And there can be no true transformation without knowledge. If you do not have the right knowledge, your mind will always remain the same. You will always see the same things you've always seen. You will always think the same way you've always thought. So until there are plans to ensure that knowledge about disability, the various kinds of disability and their implications in the lives of those who are, who have those disabilities, then many of these transformations may never happen. For example, let's take the education sector. If, the adults we have today who are biased against persons with disability, who have preconceived notions and negative stereotypes, were once children, and no one ever taught them, no one ever exposed them to people with disabilities and told them that, look, it's possible for you to have this kind of people in your environment and that there's nothing wrong with them. They are just different from you. And we know children are not born discriminatory. It's a learned behavior. So I believe one of the transformative solutions would be to find a way to inculcate into the curriculum, both theoretically and practically, where children are exposed to persons in the disability community, where children are taught about different types of disability, and they are able to, assimilate this information. And as they grow, it's no longer a new thing to them. They grow and they adapt to it. And they are able to, whenever they see a person with disability, some of these children will be the ones that will come and develop technology. And they will remember that, I know someone who can't see. So while I'm making this computer, I have to consider that there's someone who can't see. I need to include software that can help this person. It is only with knowledge that such innovations can come about. But if the right kind of knowledge is not, ingrained into or indoctrinated into the younger generation, we'll keep having the same crop of people in society who will keep thinking the same way, and discrimination may not end anytime soon.
Awesome. So Afyong has spoken to a transformative solution towards reducing discrimination or eliminating discrimination against persons with disabilities, and that is speaking to knowledge and changing of mindsets, even from the younger generation. And this brings a conversation to the key role or the role of key actors. When it comes to issues around disability, providing solutions, it is not a job for one person. We have multiple persons in play. We have different roles to play from same roles, but our own is needed. And so that brings me to the role of key actors, whether society, leaders, government, private sector, public sector, the social, non-governmental sector, family, even persons with disabilities themselves and organizations of persons with disabilities. What are some of the roles of these key actors in inclusive development and in fueling an accessible and equitable world? And I'd just like to draw from what Afyong said, when she spoke about, an innovative way of ensuring inclusion by adding it to the curriculum. And I just want to encourage even persons with disabilities that give yourself visibility. Don't hide. Do not wait till an event is for persons with disabilities before you show up. I keep telling people that there is no separate world for persons with disabilities. We exist, we coexist in the world with others. So if you are working in the area of education, like we do in Fake Foundation, where we speak to students, it is okay to show up. It's something, there's a power in understanding and in saying, true, these young persons have misconceptions about disability, but in staying, in being visible, in coming forth, you can begin to change the narrative. So to speak on the role of, key actors, I would like Osaki, pick one person, tell me one role, and we'll move like that.
Thank you very much. I'll speak on family and friends. When you have persons with disability around you or members of the family, please always try to engage them in the activity of the family, maybe household or whatever. Let them have this participatory engagement in the family or in the friendship. So they don't have this notion of ignorance, like you're ignoring them or you're sidelining them. They always have importance and potential to contribute. It's a minus and a loss to either a friendship or a family if a particular person cannot contribute because of disability. So everybody has potential. Let he or she contribute our own water. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Osaki. So Osaki is saying that from the family front, promote participation of persons and children with disabilities. That way they learn that they are contributing members of society when you're able to allow them use their voice or whatever to express themselves or add value to your family unit. Good one. Okay, Oluwatomisin, what would be your pick a key actor and speak to what that person or this group can do? Go ahead.
Okay, I want to speak to organizations of and for persons with disabilities. So this is a movement that we can't afford to get tired. We can't afford to, be self-centered about it and say, in my culture, we say something like "bamu bamu ni moyo." I am okay. Me, I'm okay now where I am. I'm less concerned about every other person. So it means that it's a continuous conversation from our end. And then when we are making this conversation of inclusive development and accessible world for persons with disabilities, we must be speaking from a place of information. We must be speaking from a place of data, from a place of research, from a place of knowledge. So I think that I want to urge organizations of and for persons with disabilities that we still have a long way to go in keeping the conversation on the lips of everybody to ensure that persons with disabilities enjoy inclusivity in all spheres of life.
Okay, thank you very much. So OPDs, PDOs, we have a lot of work to do. And Thomasin said something. It's not about, I have acclimated, I have done so well, or I am okay, I rest. It's also not about, my organization or my group, we're doing this and we avoid collaborating with one another. One of the key challenges that a lot of development partners have with OPDs and PDOs is that we like to work in silos way too much. But there's something about the collective effort, it goes further. There's an African, I don't know if that's African or Chinese before I give the wrong people, but they say if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So there's a lot of work to be done. Let's continue the conversations. Let's not stay on our lane, don't mind anybody. Let's do this together. And not just intergenerational, but we need to become transgenerational in our approach, meaning that we take young disability advocates along on this journey so that we have a stage and we develop even more critical mass. All right, Biose, who would you like to speak to? Go ahead.
Okay. Osaki spoke to the family, but now I would like to speak to the fathers, the mothers, and most likely the siblings separately, other than the family. The family consists of a whole lot of other people, like extended family and all of that. But I'd like to speak to the nuclear family, the parents. I know at some point you think your child is a problem. I believe with what we are discussing today, you have learned that all your children can be better than what you say. Just give them the chance. I know it's difficult at first, and I know it's difficult. So each father, each mother should please try and give that child the best education the child could ever ask for, and give that child the best of everything, like you would give to your other one or two children, other siblings that they have, and let them all know that they are equally responsible for each other. Not that the child is not responsible for her sister that has a disability, or the sister that has a disability is not responsible for her other sisters. They are all equally responsible, and they all have to work hand in hand. It's important because this is the way when a sibling understands what it means to have a sibling that has a disability. This sibling goes out into the world and teaches his or her friends how to handle someone who is, or handle her sister, if to handle her sister or handle her brother, and then goes out and explains it to the rest of the people. This way, everybody becomes more accepting of a disability, because one person in one family has shown the society that they live in that this is how it's done, and it's passed from one person to the other. Thank you very much.
Sorry. All right, Biose. Thank you for your response.
I would like to address the government, and what I would like to say to them is that collaboration is a key strategy to development. Nobody can work independently. Like give, and it's a Chinese proverb that says, if you want to go far, if you want to go, you go fast, go alone. You want to go far, you need people. So collaboration is key. The government should, sometimes I know they feel overwhelmed because they are not informed, but the government should focus on when stakeholder, do it like a stakeholder mapping, find out who are the key players, who are those that we need. Find if where there is no the knowledge. When the Bible says that people perish for lack of knowledge, find out, get information. At least unlike before, now we have persons with disability who are in a prominent position. You have organizations for persons with disabilities. Collaborate with them. Find out from them, what are your needs? How can we work with you? What are the different things? In what ways can we, make sure that you have a say in what happens? And it takes a government that is strategic and, it's not, linear in their thinking that, if it's not this way, it cannot be. They have to be innovative and creative. And that involves knowing that creativity does not come in one single form. And creativity has nothing to do with a person's physical condition. It's all about the mind. So as long as a person's mind is functioning at full capacity, it doesn't matter if there's only a head, the person can still contribute. So it's for the government to collaborate, ensure that the key stakeholders are brought on board, and that when decisions are being made, they will ensure that there's something, that there are different demographics. You can't make decisions for women and for children and put it under women because they have different needs. So ensure considering the needs of every, and in the education stream society, children with disabilities can attend mainstream schools without difficulty. Barriers are removed. Accessible structures are included. Staff are trained to recognize their disability and know how to deal with them. In employment, the same thing is done to ensure that there is integration, seamless integration for persons with disability.
All right, awesome contributions from Afyong. So Afyong has spoken to government, and government are really, the government or the public sector or the government sector is very important, especially when it comes to systems in our country. And, in planning things, you do not wait till when it's time for implementation before you remember there's a demography of persons with disabilities. So like she said, from decision-making processes, planning stages of whatever, you should involve persons with disabilities. And she said a lot of other things, which I don't need to repeat, but I know that you heard. So by way of me, myself speaking to this contribution and speaking to the multiple stakeholders that we have, there is a group that usually is very have a lot of apathy when it comes to persons with disabilities. They do not think a lot of times that it concerns them until something happens to them. I used to be one of those kind of persons, which is other persons in society who may not know a person with disability. I just like to mention that whether you know a person with disability or not, that if you are a human being on this earth, understand that there are other people who are different, and never use ableism to prompt or to push discrimination against others who may not look, speak, see, or think like you. Always be considerate of others and be very intentional about inclusion, especially if you are offering a service to the masses. So speaking back to the government, I'd just like to mention, or every key player in the area of development. You see, the Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 goals, cannot be achieved if a major sect is left behind. For inclusive development to happen, we must understand that no one left behind really means no one left behind. So my keen appeal, especially in the conversations, in preferring solutions, whether they are transformative or innovative, it is important for us to understand that the approach to ensuring that there is development for all is when we think inclusive development. It is an approach to development that does not eliminate based on discrimination against a group of persons because of disability or gender or race or whatever. So there's a lot more to say, but we've said so much. And so that we don't overload you, take this little that we have said along the themes of transformative solutions for inclusive development and the role of innovation in fueling accessible and equitable world. Take the conversations that we have had, the solutions we have preferred, the practical steps we have given, whether at the family unit, whether society, whether government, whether as a person with disability or an organization for or by persons with disabilities. Everybody has a role to play. So we have been on Bold TV, a program brought to you by Bold Heart Initiative, every Saturday by 10:30 a.m. Don't miss any episodes. If you want to stay with us, please go to YouTube. We are on YouTube as www.youtube.com/boldtv_bold hearts, because people have asked for that address, so you can find us on that. So boldtv_bold hearts. Type that in, you'll find us on YouTube. And of course on Facebook, www.facebook.com/bold Hearts Network. We are here until we come to your way next time, same station. Ladies, please unmute yourselves and say goodbye and God bless. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye. See you next Sunday or Saturday. You have a
But
lovely
Have a lovely week.
yes, please.